Ice Cube is a motherfucking
I
lyricist.
can't stand Ice Cube.
That's crazy.
I'm not a fan of him lyrically or acting wise.
Really?
He's the same.
How much time we got left here? Because should I just tell him to leave now? Or?
Yeah, but he turned in dramatic. He turned in hella dramatic performances.
Has he?
Yeah, Boys in the
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but Boys
Boys in the Hood.
You're right.
Higher Learning. Is it
Higher Learning? Yep. No, you're right.
Yeah. So I would damn sure take him off that list.
Who is this?
Aries Spears.
Oh, that dude?
Yeah. He said nothing
Is he a comedian?
Yeah.
Because he ain't never made me laugh, so.
Aries Spears, once beloved for his sharp impressions and biting sense of humor, just sent the internet into a frenzy. The reason, a shocking, out-of-nowhere comment that no one saw coming. During an appearance on Big Boy Hangout, Aries casually dropped a bombshell. He can't stand Ice Cube, claiming that Cube is nothing special. That both his music and acting are, in his words, flat out terrible. People were stunned. Not necessarily because he held a different opinion. Everyone's entitled to that, but because of how extreme, abrasive, and downright disrespectful his delivery was. And that was just the beginning. Aries didn't stop at the cheap shots. He went further and took aim at one of Ice Cube's most iconic tracks, It Was a Good Day, a song that's often been considered an anthem of an entire generation. Then came the line that turned heads across both the hip-hop world and Hollywood. When I hear that song, I just want to shoot the radio. What began as a personal take quickly escalated into a full-on assault on Ice Cube's legacy. And nobody could ignore it. While fans brace for a fiery clapback from Ice Cube, maybe a heated back and forth, a viral media feud, Cube's response took a completely different route. Cold, simple, but loaded with weight. And that moment marked the beginning of one of the year's biggest dramas. A comedy figure throwing shots, a rap legend disrespected, and an unexpected action star entering the ring. To understand why this drama exploded the way it did, you have to go back to when Aries first pulled the trigger. In that interview, he wasn't just voicing a negative opinion. He launched a blatant, targeted attack on Ice Cube. His words weren't simply critiquing Cube's artistic output. They went straight for the man's character, image, and nearly 3 decades of clean, respected work. Aries didn't just pick one angle. He tore into everything: Cube's rap style, lyricism, acting chops, even his role as a cultural icon. The way he did it came off more like a crude roast than any kind of thoughtful critique. When asked why he disliked Ice Cube, Aries didn't hesitate. I just don't like him, not as a musician or an actor. It sounded simple on the surface, but it carried an unmistakable level of contempt. Then, to take it even further, he targeted 2 of Cube's most legendary tracks, It Was a Good Day and No Vaseline, for rap lovers, especially those who came up during the golden age of West Coast hip-hop. These songs are untouchable. It Was a Good Day is a poetic, slice-of-life depiction of a rare day of peace in a violent world. No Vaseline is one of the most savage and brilliant diss tracks in history, marking Cube's brutal split from NWA. When Big Boy, the host, tried to steer the tone back to neutral by asking if Aries was sure if maybe he was being biased, Aries doubled down. He kept mocking, mimicking Cube's voice, even making up cringy, over-the-top skits to tear down the acting ability of the man behind Boys in the Hood. At that point, viewers began to wonder, was this just an opinion or a calculated takedown? Once Aries crossed the line from criticism to full-on slander, backlash started to build. Even longtime fans struggled to defend him. With so many low blows, people began to question his motives. Was this really just a hot take, or a desperate cry for attention as his relevance faded?
I just said I wasn't a fan of his artistry. I never attacked him as a man. I never attacked him in terms of his character. I said I wasn't a fan of his artistry. Why am I not allowed to feel that way? Why is that? And then secondly, it's always funny. People call me a hater because they love to highlight when I say I don't like something, as though I don't have love for anything.
As Aries' comments spread like wildfire across social media, everyone waited to see how Ice Cube would respond. After all, Cube has never been one to shy away from conflict. He's clapped back at bigger enemies, including the media and even the music industry itself. But this time, Cube didn't rush to post a fiery Instagram rant. He didn't jump on a podcast to air grievances. He didn't chase drama like so many artists do. His response? Just a few calm, pointed words, and they hit like a punch in the face. When played the clip of Aries' rant, Cube smirked and said, "Suckers usually don't like me." A line filled with subtext, delivered in that signature Ice Cube cool. The same attitude that's defined his entire brand. Then he added, "I've never heard of that guy." A brutal brush-off that practically erased Aries from the cultural map. And to seal it, "He's never made me laugh, so I'm not even sure he's a comedian." It wasn't loud, but it hit hard. Cube showed exactly what it means to be a legend. You don't need to scream to be heard. He spoke little but said everything. He didn't stoop to the level of pettiness, didn't lash out emotionally. He let the words speak for themselves. Not even mentioning Aries by name, that was its own power move. Cube was basically saying, "You're not even worth acknowledging." Cube's composure only made people respect him more. In a world where reputations can crumble over a few tweets, he remains rock solid, scandal-free, unbothered, and never reactive. That's why Aries' attacks didn't hurt Cube. If anything, they backfired, revealing more about Aries himself, his bitterness, his immaturity, and his failure to handle fading fame. But the drama didn't stop there, because right after Cube's cool-headed reply, someone else stepped into the spotlight. Someone whose name alone commands caution, Michael Highwhite. If Ice Cube responded with quiet strength, then Michael Highwhite's entrance felt more like a warning. One that came with the potential for real consequences. Michael isn't a rapper, a comedian, or someone who usually gets caught up in social media feuds. He's a man of action, in every sense of the word. A real-life martial artist with black belts in multiple disciplines and a long, respected career in action films. Michael is the type of guy who doesn't need to say much for people to know, "Don't mess with him." And yet, Aries Spears went there. In follow-up statements, Aries didn't just keep targeting Cube. He started throwing shade at Michael too. He subtly threatened that if Michael crossed the line, he wouldn't be afraid of a confrontation. That's right, a comedian who once got punched live on radio was talking smack about a man who convincingly knocked out Kimbo Slice on screen and has trained in combat sports for most of his life. No one could quite figure out what Aries was thinking. Arrogance, or maybe desperation to hold onto some last scraps of attention. Then Michael responded, no yelling, no name calling. He joined an interview on Vlad TV, a show known for stirring up celebrity drama, and stayed cool and collected the whole time. When asked about Aries' comments on Ice Cube, Michael didn't blindly defend Cube. Instead, he broke it down. He explained that Ice Cube isn't just an artist. He's someone who paved his own way through Hollywood. For a rapper to successfully cross over into acting, producing, directing, and even creating hit franchises like Friday and Barbershop, that's no small feat. Michael pointed out that comparing Cube to top-tier actors like Leonardo DiCaprio or Daniel Day-Lewis makes no sense. If those were the only standards we judged actors by, then even many Hollywood veterans wouldn't make the cut. He also noted that most actors, in reality, play characters who aren't too far from who they are in real life, and that's not a flaw, it's just part of the craft. Ice Cube, with his mix of humor and toughness, actually has more range than people like Aries give him credit for. Most importantly, Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten violence or throw insults. All he said was, "If there's an issue, you know where to find me." That one line said everything. Calm, direct, and unmistakably serious. It wasn't a challenge. It was a message from a real man with real credibility. Both on screen and off, Michael's involvement shifted everything. This was no longer just a petty insult war. When someone as low-key as Michael Highwhite steps in to stand up for Ice Cube, the public starts asking real questions. Who's actually in the wrong here? Who's out of touch with reality? And more importantly, who's trying to stay relevant by stepping on someone else's legacy? What started as a controversial opinion quickly turned Aries Spears into the center of a drama he could have easily avoided, but instead of taking a step back and reflecting, Aries chose to double down, and that's when everything started spiraling out of control. After facing backlash from fans and especially after Michael's response, Aries didn't go quiet. He went on the offensive. He called Cube a sucker, labeled Michael clueless about real art, and even tried to paint himself as a victim of anti-free speech cancel culture. In a video response, Aries played the victim card, saying, "Why can't I have an opinion? Why is it that just because I don't like Ice Cube, I'm suddenly a hater?" On the surface, that might sound reasonable, but in reality, it was his tone, aggressive, mocking, condescending, that turned his words from opinion into outright attacks. The problem with Aries wasn't just this one incident. It was the latest in a pattern of questionable behavior. Going back years, industry insiders still remember the controversy from 2022, when Aries and Tiffany Haddish were sued over a comedy skit that involved children in highly inappropriate scenarios. A skit that was pulled from the Funny or Die platform altogether. Even though the case was eventually settled, Aries' image took a serious hit. He never apologized, never showed remorse. He just tried to spin the narrative to the public. That only reinforced what they already suspected. Aries isn't just tactless, he's irresponsible with his words and actions. And that's the real reason many people can't back him anymore when criticized. Instead of stepping back and reflecting, Aries lashes out, blames others, and tries to twist the story by playing the victim. What's even harder for fans to accept is how he keeps pretending to be surprised by the fallout, when he's the one constantly escalating the conflict more than anyone else. The more he talks, the more he reveals his real weakness, a desperate need for attention, validation, and relevance. But instead of letting his talent shine, he goes for cheap shots, provocation, and beefing with people who've actually made an impact, people who don't need to scream to leave a mark. And that's exactly why Aries' image continues to crumble in the eyes of his former fans when you compare him to Ice Cube, who's maintained over 30 years in entertainment without scandal or drama. All of Aries' sarcastic jabs just come off as sad. That's when the public realized this wasn't a debate about art anymore. It was a self-destruct in slow motion, a desperate attempt not to be forgotten. At the center of all this noise is one man, Ice Cube, who never sought out drama, yet found himself the target of relentless attacks. But what makes people rally behind Cube isn't just that he was unfairly dragged into it. It's what he represents, a long, steady career, and more importantly, one that's clean. Ice Cube isn't just a rapper. He's one of the pioneers who turned hip-hop into a powerful tool to voice the struggles of the black community in America, especially during the early 90s. As a co-founder of NWA, Cube helped revolutionize the music industry by putting raw, unfiltered experiences on the big stage. When he left NWA, he dropped No Vaseline, a diss track that's widely considered one of the most brutal and brilliant in hip-hop history, not just for how direct it was, but for how masterfully it was written. No one can deny that his album America's Most Wanted marked a defining moment in his career. But what truly sets him apart is this: Cube didn't stop at music. He crossed into film, and not in the half-baked way so many celebrities do. From Boys and the Hood, a socially charged cinematic classic, to iconic comedies like Friday and Barbershop, and even family-friendly movies like Are We There Yet? Cube proved he could do it all. He's worn every hat: actor, screenwriter, producer, director. And in doing so, he didn't just build his own empire. He opened doors for other black talents like Chris Tucker, Mike Epps, Keke Palmer, and Tracy Morgan. What's even more impressive is that Cube did all this while keeping his image intact. No cheating scandals, no financial controversies, no personal drama splashed across tabloids. Something that's nearly unheard of in the entertainment industry. He's been married to the same woman since 1992 and has kept his family life private and steady for over 3 decades. In an industry where scandal is often used as a marketing tool, Cube chose to stay quiet and let his work speak. And that's why he's respected, not just for his skills, but for his integrity. So when Aries Spears came after Cube, people didn't just see it as disrespect toward one man. They saw it as disrespect toward a symbol, a man who used his art to speak for millions, a man who rose up without selling out, a man who became a role model for generations of young artists. Cube isn't perfect. Nobody is, but he never relied on cheap tricks to stay in the spotlight, and that's what makes him untouchable. Not because people worship him, but because he's never done anything to break the public's trust. That's why when Aries kept taking jabs, people didn't see Cube getting disrespected. They saw the desperation of a man trying too hard. And the harder Aries tried to drag Cube down, the clearer the gap became between the two. One built a lasting legacy. The other is clinging to whatever relevance he has left. This story might fade, like so many social media dramas that flare up and then die down, but the image it leaves behind will stick. Aries Spears, growing more isolated, and Ice Cube, quietly continuing to expand his influence. And for anyone out there desperate for attention in this brutal showbiz world, this whole episode serves as a warning. Don't build your name by tearing others down. Because if you don't have a strong enough foundation of your own, you'll be the first one buried by the rubble.